Good girl. Yeah, good girl.
Well, good evening, everyone. I'll be your acting chairperson this evening. I think we're still waiting to see if Philip McGinnis is going to join us. Have we heard whether or not he's going to be here or not?
Yes, Philip McGinnis, he will not be here tonight.
Okay,
So
all
we
right.
should be good to go.
Okay, so we can get started. My name is Judy Billings. You'll just have to bear with me. I haven't done this type of board meeting in a while, so we'll call the meeting to order. And then next item is to set the agenda. Tonight we'll be going over the ETJ relinquishment proposal with a recommendation to the council. And then the second thing we will be doing this evening is looking at a request to subdivide some parcels off of Mooney Road for development of duplexes on that property. So the first thing we need to do is approve the minutes from the January 12th meeting. Has everybody had an opportunity to look at those or read over those? Are there any changes to anything? If not, then do I have a motion to approve?
I make a motion that we approve the minutes from the January 12th meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. Do I have a second?
I'll second that, Judy.
All right, thank you. So just to do a quick roll call, I'll go across the screen, Ms. Navy. Do you approve or disapprove?
I approve.
Ms. Davis,
I approve.
Ms. Summey,
I approve, although I was not at that meeting.
Mr. Barnes?
I approve.
And I also approve. I will state I was also not at that meeting. So all in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, so motion carries. Those minutes are approved. The next thing on the agenda is the ETJ relinquishment recommendation to the council. So for the record, the notice of the public hearing was published, as well as first-class mail notice was mailed out to owners of the ETJ parcels. So Mr. Town Manager, if you could give us some more information on that, let us know what we're moving forward with on that.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. This matter coming before the planning board tonight is something that the staff has been working on for quite a while now, involving the extraterritorial jurisdiction for our zoning in the town of Stanley. This, just to give those who may be listening, or even the board members, some history on this. Back before Gaston County even adopted a zoning ordinance in the county, many of the cities within the counties in North Carolina were allowed to adopt zoning jurisdictions anywhere from 1 mile up to 2 miles in the ETJ, or considered what to be with the ETJ. The town of Stanley has a 2 mile ETJ, which means that there are places in our current ETJ that are reach out up to 2 miles from our corporate city limits. What this will do is will relinquish a portion of this ETJ into the hands of Gaston County and out of the hands of the town of Stanley to handle the zoning for that jurisdiction. The reason for this is the county, of course, does have a zoning code now that is equal to, or in some cases could be better or more restrictive, considering who is making the application. But the fact is, they do have a zoning code, and Stanley no longer needs to zone 2 miles outside of the city limits. So what we have done is try to condense that relinquishment down into areas that we feel like we would have no chance of ever having a need to zone that area, and retain some of those areas that we feel like we would. And so that's the map that was sent out for public notice, along with the required public notice. I think Olga sent out close to 2,000 letters notifying those in the ETJ and anyone who had a parcel in the ETJ. They didn't have to reside there, but if they own property, they received a letter. And so the public has been duly notified through that notice. And the first step is to bring this to the planning board for your examination and questions. And then upon your approval, we will take this to the city council for their final adoption. I know this is a lot of information to take in and a lot of information to consider. I don't know how many calls, if any, you've received, but we have received a large number of calls from the public inquiring as to what this really means. I can tell you some of the things it doesn't mean. It doesn't mean or have any bearing whatsoever on our city limits. Has nothing to do with school districts. It has nothing to do with taxation. It all has to do with zoning jurisdiction. And if anything, this will mean less government restriction instead of more. So I did reach out, and we worked with the Gazette to put together an article which did come out in the digital format, and I believe it finally came out in printed form, which has been very helpful in us getting the word out to the public. And so our phone calls have dropped off, but so that kind of gives you a synopsis, and the board can approve this. If you need more time, we can, you can certainly do that as well, but that's the matter before you this evening. And I'll be glad to answer any questions if I can.
I have a couple of questions, Mr. Jenkins. So I see on the map, there's a relinquishment of some areas up around Hovis and Mooney Road. My concern is that we're relinquishing areas where we have a partial outside the city limits, or that is part of the city limits, and then we're relinquishing zoning where it's not in the city limits. So my concern is that at some point I don't know that we want to forego giving up the authority we have over that, because that's space in between the two city limits. Does that make sense? That's like up off of Hovis Road, where a new subdivision has been proposed that's in the city limits. And then my other concern is down around Lafayette and Mooney, where Bennington Woods is. I do know those are not in the city limits, but I feel like if we want to maintain control of that and be consistent with what we already have zoned, then that may be something we want to consider hanging on to just for continuity purposes, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, and I think that makes perfect sense. I will tell you that this zoning map that you see before you is not a finished product, and I've made notations about those particular parcels, and we will make note of that and request that those be added back in to the area that will not be relinquished, and any other areas that we feel like should not be relinquished. And then the council will also, I'm sure, have input on that as well. So I've noted that the two areas that you have mentioned, and we will work on making those changes.
Any discussion from anyone else?
I'd like to know what kind of questions were being asked by the callers that called in about this ETJ relinquishment. In short, the majority, what were the concerns?
Sure. I think that 95% of the calls that we received were simply people did not understand the wording in the letter that was sent out. There was a lot of confusion as to what it did mean. Not necessarily that anyone objected to it, and most of the folks that we spoke with, after they understood more of what it meant, they didn't have any further questions and completely understood it. I had several people who actually stopped by the office who had received calls from their neighbors and felt comfortable enough to come up and talk to us about it, and we explained everything to them, and I think they went back and explained it to their neighbors, and everything seemed to be okay. Some of the other questions that we received, what does this mean? Is the county's zoning more restrictive or less restrictive than Stanley's? The truth is, we've been zoning this area for so long that there are probably some who would prefer to maybe be zoned by the town of Stanley versus the county. I've had a few of those comments, but I don't think there's an easy way to say is their zoning more or less restrictive. I think that it just depends. I think it's very similar to just like most of all the other zoning ordinances are very similar in nature, but I don't see any huge differences between Gaston County zoning ordinance and ours. So I mean, that's a very subjective question to say, is it more restrictive? Because I guess it depends on what you're applying for, what it is you're doing. It definitely is going to make the process more seamless. If you live outside in the ETJ, currently you have to obtain a zoning permit from the town of Stanley, pay a zoning fee before you go to Gaston County, and then you have to do the same. So there's duplications of permitting and duplications of fees in that area of the ETJ that we zone currently. So that will be one positive thing for someone that lives in the ETJ, and when they're relinquished from our jurisdiction, they will no longer have to come to Stanley to have a permit to go to the county. That's one of the major differences.
Well, I'm just, the question I guess I'm trying to ask is, will we have protection against, let's just say our focus is growing our community. We've already added several developments, and some are ongoing. Will this prohibit us from having control over how our community develops going forward? If we relinquish this area and give it to the county, they can decide how that area is going to grow. So I guess my question is, what will we lose from the town of Stanley by relinquishing this area?
I think it's defined to losing the jurisdiction over how it is developed and zoned, and what, those type of things. What we tried to do is retain within our jurisdiction those areas which we see potential growth in the future, but relinquish those areas where we don't see any potential growth in the future. And one of the things I need to mention too, that there was also a huge difference in zoning laws, not zoning laws, but annexation laws, when this was established, even up until the last 15 years. It was still easy for a city or a town to go outside their city limits and annex, just because the city wanted to annex, not necessarily because the neighborhoods wanted to be annexed. And that has changed drastically. Under the current annexation laws, we can only go outside the corporate city limits if we are requested to do so, either by a developer who is asking to come in the city limits because they want to build a development, or a neighborhood where over 80%, it may even be higher than that, petition the town to be annexed. And you don't see that very often, simply because of taxation issues. So those are things that have dramatically changed since this was originally brought about versus now.
So we don't really have we don't anticipate having any of this property annexed under the rules and regulations that we are now following.
Not in the area that we propose to relinquish. And
Okay.
To my knowledge, there would be no anything prohibiting that anyway. Just because it was in the county's jurisdiction versus ours, it wouldn't necessarily prevent us from annexation. But we tried to carve out that map and leave those areas where we see there could be potential development in the future, and then relinquish the part that we don't. And that's not an exact science, but we feel like it's fairly close. And I'm sure there's areas, as Judy had brought up this evening, that we may have missed, or if you see where we've proposed relinquishment on one parcel, and then there another parcel across the street this may be owned by the same person, we certainly don't want to split those up and make it more difficult for that property owner either to have to go through two jurisdictions to do anything. So I know that we've seen a few of those that we plan on correcting, but there may be some we missed.
Thank you for your complete answer, Mr. Jenkins.
You're quite welcome.
Any further discussion or questions? Are there any other citizen comments that we need to be aware of, Mr. Manager? Or people
Madam Clerk, I
opposing?
don't know of any, strong public comment that we've had either way. I did receive, like I said, a few comments, a few inquiries, but nothing that anybody indicated that they wanted me to share that was, they were strongly against the relinquishment of the ETJ.
Yes, I did not receive any comments, just questions about, ETJ.
Okay, so I have a procedural question here. Do we make a motion to move forward with this with suggestions noted, or do we table it until any suggestions are adopted or amended to the map before we move it to the city council?
Madam Chairman, may I make a recommendation? If the board feels comfortable with approving what we have proposed thus far with those corrections that you had indicated, it would help expedite this to move it to the next step to the council. But that still does not prevent the planning board from further reviewing this information and forwarding those comments to myself or to Olga. And we will make sure that those get implemented before we present it to council. And then, if the council has any changes, we'll add those as well. And then we can move forward from that. Because at this point, it's only a draft up until the time we accept your changes and the council makes theirs. I think that would be in order to handle it that way. I don't know of any issues with that.
Okay, so do I have a motion to move it forward with a recommendation to the council to improve the suggestions that we've made to amend the map for their review?
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All right, so let me do a roll call. Ms. Navy, do you approve or disapprove?
I approve.
Ms. Davis,
I approve.
Mr. Barnes,
Approve.
Ms. Summey,
Approve.
and I also approve, so the motion is approved. And this case will be heard at the town council meeting on October 4th at the regular meeting. All right, so
Thank
the
you.
second item on our agenda this evening is the subdivision of parcels 167559, 167560, 167552, and a portion of 200520. The applicant is Preston Fisher. The property address is off of Mooney Road in Stanley, and the request is to subdivide into 11 parcels to construct duplexes. And for the record, the notice of the public hearing was published, as well as the first-class mail notice was mailed to the abutting parcels. Is anyone from the applicant present on our meeting?
Yes, ma'am. My name's Kyle Crow. I'm with McKim & Creed, and we represent Mr. Fisher.
Okay. Do you have anything that any information you want to provide us at this time?
Nothing too particular. Obviously, Mr. Fisher's been part of the Stanley community for quite some time, and he's looking to take his parcel of land, 4 parcels actually, 3 in a partial, and to combine / subdivide to propose 11 duplex buildings. Those duplexes would be all brick with vinyl trim. Sizes would be each unit would be 25 by 50, so about 1,250 square feet. He is looking to do well and septic on the site. I spoke to Craig in your Public Works Department, and he pointed me to Gaston County, and I spoke to the Health Department, and they were supportive of the development on a septic and well, and obviously permits will have to be applied for. But Mr. Fisher's early on in the site plan, so we provided the site plan to him, and we understand and he understands that it would go through a subdivision plan review with staff, and we'd have to meet all the requirements of the ordinance, buffer setbacks, everything along those lines. So we feel that what's shown on the plan is doable and permittable, and just asking permission to pursue that option.
And Madam Clerk, do we have any citizen comments that have been submitted?
Yes, we actually had one comment. It came from Rhonda Thrower. She resides at 1026 Upper Spencer Mountain Road. Her property adjacent to parcel 1675552. And she's having a concern about the location of the proposed duplexes on that parcel, and especially the clear cutting of the natural woodland environment adjacent to her property. She's requesting that the owner consider leaving the part of the property that adjoins her land natural, as well as not disturbing the stream on the property. That was the only comment that we received.
And just
Kyle,
to,
what do you say? Oh, sorry.
yeah,
Go ahead.
sorry, just to elaborate on that, that rear portion of the site, our intent is to go ahead and leave that primarily undisturbed. We have two septic fields shown on the plan. One would be a primary septic, and then the other one would be a repair area. So as long as the septic system is operating properly, it would go ahead and we'd never have to touch that repair area. So you would end up with a large portion towards the rear that would not have to be cleared. And then also the area for the proposed water well area, that area, I guess the plan does look like that would be cleared, but that's just a clear zone area around it. We wouldn't propose any improvements in that area as well. So our current plan has about 85 feet between our property line at the corner of unit 18 and the adjacent property. So I feel like we'd be able to leave a pretty good undisturbed buffer there. The grades drop off towards the back pretty significantly there, and we would want to stay out of that.
So if I'm looking at the map correctly, that's the area, what would be my left-hand side, where you see a blue area that it looks like it's a buffer or a sand filter area.
I believe the area Olga mentioned was actually, you've got a area that's called proposed septic drain field. It
Yes.
would be back in that area, I believe, is where her property is. And Olga, you can correct me if I'm
Yes,
wrong.
that is correct. Yes.
Okay. Board, any questions or any discussion?
All right, what is the current zoning for this property?
It is R20.
So Mr. Manager, how does his proposed setbacks match up with that R20 zoning?
They would have to comply with our R20 requirements under the current zoning ordinance under R20. So they would have to meet those minimum setbacks.
And that the current plan does reflect those setbacks in the ordinance as well.
Yes. Hey, I might want to mention as well that the requirement for this matter to be before you under the old use chart would have, I don't believe you would have had to hear this in the ETJ under R20 for you would for the subdivision part, of course, but the use of apartments or duplexes at that point, I'm not even sure that they would have required a approval, but the subdivision would have.
Board, any other questions or comments? Okay,
Where is her property line in relation to the drawing that we have?
I can share my screen with you and point it out if you like, see if that would work. Oh, like, sorry, it's been disabled. If you look at the site plan and you look at unit 18
Mhm.
and head directly to the left, it would be that parcel. There's two labels within her parcel. One says proposed water well area and one says proposed septic drain field.
Mhm.
And ordinance requirements for the rear setback are only 25 feet, I believe. And let me give you a measurement of how far we're actually off the property line in that location real quick. It is, so our setback on the building there is actually 130 feet. So about 105 feet in addition to the minimum per the ordinance.
any other questions? All right, so do I have a motion to approve the zoning application for parcels 167,559, 167,560, 167,552, and a portion of 200,520 for the request to subdivide into 11 parcels to construct duplexes?
I'll make the motion
All right.
to approve.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, thank you. So let me do a roll call. Ms. Navy, you approve or disapprove?
I approve.
Ms. Davis,
I approve.
Mr. Barnes,
I approve.
Ms. Summey.
I-
I approve also, so the motion is unanimous. This motion, I also need to add that this will be heard by the town council on October 4th at the regular meeting. All right, any other items or any other discussion?
Thank you very much.
All right, so I think we have concluded our business for this evening for the planning board. So I'll
Madam
ask-
Chairman, may I
Yes.
mention just a couple of things real quick?
Yes,
Number one, I would like to welcome Alicia to our board. This is her first meeting since being appointed. Welcome, Alicia.
Thank you very
You're welcome. The second matter is, we are in the process of working on the land use plan with the Central Line Council of Government. We actually moved on towards completing two different items. Some were pursuant to a requirement by North Carolina General Statute, but one of the items was the land use plan, and it is going to be handled by a consultant, as I mentioned. But they would like for the planning board to serve as the steering committee for this. And Matthew, the gentleman that we're working with, estimated that it would be no more than 4 meetings in 8 months. And I just wanted to make sure the board was in agreement to act as the steering committee for that land use plan. Otherwise, we would have to form another committee or steering committee for that. And we feel like that the planning board would be the most appropriate avenue for that steering committee, because you're the ones that hear the land, hear a lot of these requests and would be most suitable for that. So before we move forward with that, just wanted to mention that. And also I wanted to mention that we, because of Mr. Miller leaving the board on both boards, who was acting as our chairman, we need to elect a new chairperson for both the planning board and the board of adjustments. And of course, those would need to be done separately, but and those do not have to be done tonight. But I did want to mention that we do need to decide on a new chairman for both boards. And thank you, Ms. Billings, for agreeing to chair tonight's meeting for us. That's all I have.
just had one question, and this doesn't have anything to do with anything on the agenda, but the new law that, and the changes that were made to the zoning laws that we took a look at several months ago and approved and whatever. Is that in process, or has that been done, or were those changes made? Or, because I made a couple of recommendations, and he said he would check into that and see that that got incorporated.
We are in the process of finalizing with him, so I assume it should be done sometime next month.
Okay.
Once we have it finalized, we'll definitely share the ordinance with you.
Okay,
The
good.
revised one, yes.
There were a couple of things. One in particular was the time of the meeting was 5:30 in the booklet update, and I suggested it be put back to 6 o'clock. And I just wanted to make sure that that was being considered, because 5:30 would be very difficult for me to be available in the evening, so.
Yes, that's not a problem. We would see no problem at all with leaving the meetings at 6. We know that's a difficult, 5:30 would be a very difficult time for people who work 8 to 5 to be able to be on at a meeting or on the Zoom call by 5:30. So
Yeah.
that's not an issue.
Driving from Charlotte, you don't always know when you're going to get home.
Sure. Surprised you make it by 6.
Yeah. But thank you, Olga. I'll look forward to getting that later.
Yes, mhm, absolutely.
All right, any other discussion? Okay, then I'll ask for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I make a motion, we adjourn the meeting.
I have a second.
I'll second.
All right, so let me do a roll call. Ms. Navy,
Yes.
Ms. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Barnes,
Yes.
Ms. Summey.
Yes.
I also approve, so all in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. This meeting is adjourned. So we will move forward to the second meeting of the evening, the Board of Adjustments meeting. So let me call that meeting to order. We'll set the agenda. The only thing we have on the meeting tonight is a request for a special use permit for parcel number 133964. The applicant is Sherman Helms, and it's at 100 South Main Street to operate a thrift store in the C-B zone. Before we get to that, I would ask for approval of the minutes from the March 9th, 2021 meeting. Has everybody had a chance to look over those? Are there any changes? All right, I'll ask for a motion to approve the minutes from the March 9th, 2021 meeting.
I'll approve or make a motion.
All right, I need a second.
I second it.
All right, do a roll call. Ms. Navy, do you approve or disapprove?
I approve.
Ms. Davis,
I approve.
Ms. Summey,
I approve, but I was not at that meeting.
I also approve. Is everyone in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, minutes have been approved for the March 9th, 2021 meeting. So the item on our agenda this evening is a request for a special use permit parcel for parcel number 133964. The applicant is Sherman Helms. The property address is 100 South Main Street, Stanley, North Carolina. Request is for a special use permit to operate a thrift store in C-B zone. For the record, the notice of the public hearing was published as well as first-class mail. Notice was mailed to the abutting parcels. Is the applicant present on the meeting?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Helms, do you have any comments that you would like to tell us at this time, or any information you'd like to provide us?
No.
Madam Clerk, were there any citizen comments submitted?
No, we did not receive any comments.
All right, any discussion from the board?
Mr. Helms, thank you for trying to operate a business there. Just curious, what will your business hours be?
Probably from about 9 o'clock in the morning or 10 till about 5 or 6.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I see that this is in the, is it business district or CB, commercial business zone? But is this a residence?
No, it's a,
No, it's right in town.
it's in town, honey, right there at, beside the BPT Bank.
It's the old staff
The road is go-
business there, Miss Sunny. It's right there on the corner of South Main and West Chestnut.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Madam
All
Chair,
Go ahead, Mr.
she is correct that this is located within the town's central business district, which, you know, was set aside as a district to be a little more restrictive than that of regular business due to our plans to develop that in the best and highest use possible for that area. So just wanted to bring that to the board's attention. I'm not sure that this business is a fit for that area.
Well, I would agree. It's not the typical business we would see on Main Street. As far as a thrift store, typically we don't see those on Main Street in the central business district. I guess my question would be is how neat or how, what type of items are you going to be selling, Mr. Helms? I know it's a thrift store, but people
Well-
do different things as far as thrift stores.
It's just gonna be a store where I buy bins most of the time. And I go to auctions. And most of the stuff I get is real nice stuff. You know, and I clean it up, make sure it works right before I resell anything. And I got tools. I sell a lot of tools and furniture. And it's stuff people need. And I keep my store clean. There's nothing outside. I clean the place up and everything. And I will keep it clean. So I mean, I'll run a good business there. There won't be nothing outside trashy looking or nothing. I went out and cleaned. First thing I done is clean the parking lot up, cut the grass down and everything out there.
Mr. Helms, do you plan to hire any employees for your business?
Just probably me and my brother will run it.
Any further questions or any other discussion? So I'll ask, do we have a motion to approve or disapprove the special use permit for the operation of the thrift store at 100 South Main Street? All right, there is no motion. So the special use permit is not approved. Okay, so Mr. Helms, I would suggest there's plenty of other areas in town that you could put that. There's several places down off of Highway 27 or maybe up on North 27, buildings that are vacant that would be outside the central business district. So you may want to look at those and see if you can submit another request. It is not approved for 100 South Main Street.
Okay,
All right, thank you for your information.
all right, thank y'all.
Mr. Manager, any other information or any other discussion?
No, ma'am, I have nothing further.
All right, I will ask for a motion to adjourn the meeting, and we have concluded our business for the evening.
I make a motion, we adjourn the meeting.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
All right, let me do a roll call. Ms. Navy? Approve or
Approve.
disapprove?
I
Ms.
approve.
Ms. Davis?
I approve.
Ms. Summey?
Approve.
I also approve. So all in favor to adjourn our meeting? All right, thank you all for your participation this evening.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
everyone.
Everyone have a good night.